Hello, everybody. This is Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, which I have recorded the night before because looking at the weather, it looks like we're going to get crazy winds and thunderstorms right during my show, which means that the power is going to go out, and which means that the internet will go out. And so I'm just going to go ahead and just record a show, and there you go. So what am I showing? Three films. First one I've shown before, but I love it. It's part of the health series, Encyclopedia Britannica. This is Safety, Playground Spirits, where little kids haunt a playground. Then there is Atmosphere and Motion. Both of these are Encyclopedia Britannica films. Atmosphere and Motion is because while the show is going on, the atmosphere is going to be in motion. And then there's a film. This is from, I actually have this from two sources. I have this from National Archives, but I also have this from Rick Prellinger's collection. It's Voice from the Screen. And this is a kind of a promotional exhibition film about sound motion pictures. And it's by Vitagraph. And the cool thing about Vitagraph, or the interesting thing about Vitagraph, is, or Vitaphone, is that they're giant records. They're like this, they're like this big. And what you would do is you would sync it manually with the film. So you'd see a cue on the film, and then you would drop the needle, and then I think it would go from the inside out. And so there were special projectors that were made that actually had like a giant turntable attached to them, and these were huge, cinema projectors. And so that's how they did sound on these Vitaphone things. They also made like a home version of it too, which wasn't very successful, but still, it's fascinating. It's a way, like, how do we do sound? And this is before they figured out, we can have on the side, we can have an optical soundtrack and do it that way. So anyways, thanks for watching today. Maybe I'll be around. It kind of depends on I might be able to look on my phone. But we'll see you on Thursday. If you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up, hit the like. You can always support us financially by using the super thanks button, or going to ko-fi.com/avgeeks or patreon.com/avgeeks, or watching other films on our channel. That's another way to do it. Also, subscribe. We have a bunch of subscribers, but we can always use you if you haven't subscribed yet. Thanks so much, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.
It looked like it was going to be a wonderful morning. All the spirits in the park sounded so happy. Mark and I woke up early. The Grandmaster of the Park Spirits said we could be in charge of the playground safety. That's not always an easy job because of spirits like Axel.
Everyone could have a good time in our park today. I hope so. Things didn't go well yesterday. That board falling off the swing.
I don't think anything will happen today. Hey, let's go wake up Axel.
Axel, come on, sun yourself with us. Go away. Come on out, Axel. I don't feel like it.
It's a beautiful day for anyone who's coming here.
Nope, it's a bad day, a lousy day. I hope nobody has a good time today.
I wonder what will happen.
We'll find out sooner or later.
We didn't know what to think because Axel was in such a bad mood. But we still think it's going to be fun. People were coming to the park to have a good time.
Oh, just been giving us bananas and apples and oranges and stuff like that.
Everybody had his own turn on the slide. No one was swinging too crooked or too high. The merry-go-round wasn't being pushed too fast. It was such fun.
Down by the ocean, down by the sea, Johnny broke the bottle and blamed it on me. I tell Ma, Ma tell Pa, Johnny got a whipping tail, ha ha ha. How many whippings did he get? What?
Suddenly it all changed. It was changed when that wild football team came. It must be Axel. Oh no! Ouch!
The other way!
Oh, look at that! Not the whole playground.
Whoa!
Stop! Since Axel caused it all, only Axel could stop it now.
Axel, it's terrible. The football boys have changed the whole park, and you drew them here. You drew them on purpose. Get them out of here. You get out of here. No, get those football boys out of here. We'll call the Grandmaster of the Parks, and you'll be sent to Garbage Land. You mean that? Yes, Garbage Land.
Garbage Land made Axel change his mind. He took a look around and decided to act fast.
Hey! You've forgotten all the basic rules of safety when others are nearby. You completely ignored the right to privacy. In fact, you've come close to injuring some of the people. Now move out of here and go to an open area where you can play safely. Now!
He stopped the football team and turned them backwards. They had to start all over again. This time playing in the right place. The park was happy again. Everybody was so happy, playing safely, and no one was getting hurt. And even Axel was in a good mood.
Isn't it better now, the way things are? People in the park leave each other alone. Everybody's playing safely and having a great time.
When you're out in space, you realize how important the Earth's atmosphere really is. Astronauts have to carry an artificial atmosphere along with them, enough to last until they return to Earth.
Apollo, this is Mission Control. We show 5 minutes till re-entry. Roger, command module attitude nominal. We're starting to read atmosphere. 2 Gs.
In the outer reaches of the atmosphere, air as we know it is almost non-existent. There are only scattered particles of gas. At an altitude of approximately 120 kilometers, gas particles are more numerous. The atmosphere is more dense. In this layer of the atmosphere, a spacecraft is heated by friction as it speeds toward Earth.
Roger, that we really got a fireball up here.
In the stratosphere, where commercial jet aircraft fly, the atmosphere is dense enough to allow parachutes to decrease a space capsule's speed. The stratosphere extends from about 10 to 50 kilometers, or about 7 to 30 miles out in space. The troposphere is the layer of the atmosphere that lies closest to Earth. This is the region where we experience clouds, wind, and weather. This is the air we work and play in. This is the atmosphere that supports all life on Earth.
Splash down. Roger, confirm splash. Spacecraft is in stable 1.
The atmosphere. It can burn a spacecraft to a cinder, or ripple its fingers through your hair on a sunny afternoon. Normally, we can't see it, but we know it's always there, and always changing. Although we can't see the gases that make up the atmosphere, we can observe and measure their effects. We know, for example, that the greatest part of the atmosphere, almost 80% by volume, is nitrogen, a gas that reacts only slightly with other chemicals. We also know that the atmosphere contains oxygen, because without it, nothing would burn, and most living things would perish. Carbon dioxide, which is necessary for plant life, is present in small amounts, along with other gases like xenon, argon, helium, and methane. Water exists in the atmosphere as a gas, which we call water vapor. When water vapor condenses to its liquid or solid form, it may become visible as clouds, or fog, or as droplets on the side of a cold pitcher. This thin layer of gases, held to the Earth by the force of gravity, is our atmosphere, or what we call simply air.
Although we don't often think about it, the atmosphere has weight, and this weight exerts a pressure that affects everything on Earth. Atmospheric pressure works in all directions. Here, the atmosphere is pushing upward with enough force to hold water in this cylinder. When we allow it to push downward as well, opening the top of the cylinder equalizes the effects of air pressure. The water can be pulled down by the force of gravity. The pressure of the atmosphere can be measured with a simple mercury barometer. Air pressing down on the mercury in this container supports the mercury column in the sealed tube. On this beach at sea level, air pressure is sufficient to support a column of 76 centimeters. When the barometer is taken to a mountaintop, the column falls to 61 centimeters. This indicates that there is less air pressing down on the mercury. Atmospheric pressure is lower. The higher the altitude, the lower the pressure. What causes motion in the atmosphere? In a word, the answer is heat. Using special lighting and photographic equipment, we can demonstrate the effect of heat on air. The candle's flame is heating the air around it. Heat causes molecules of air to move faster so that there is more space between them. At the same pressure, a volume of warm air contains fewer molecules than the same volume of cool air. The warm air is lighter, and because it is lighter, it rises. On a hot day, you can see the same process at work as warm air rises from the Earth's surface. The energy to heat this air comes from the sun. All the motions of the atmosphere, from the slightest breeze to the most violent storm, are powered by the sun. Less than 1/billionth of the sun's total energy output warms the Earth and provides energy for all its life. But not all parts of the Earth receive the same amount of the sun's energy. We can demonstrate this using a globe, a light source, and a screen that allows equal amounts of light to pass through each opening. The amount of light falling on the globe can be measured. Near the North Pole, we count 6 units of light falling on an area of approximately 25 square centimeters. At the equator, 12 units of light fall on the same area. The light energy falling at the pole is less concentrated than that falling near the equator. Over tropical seas, the sun beats down throughout the year, heating air and evaporating water day after day. Near the Earth's poles, temperatures may be more than 100 degrees colder. From what we know about hot air, we can assume that the air at the equator is rising. What is happening to the cold air at the poles? Adding a cold source to our special photographic setup suggests the answer. While hot air near the candle is rising, cold air near the dry ice is sinking. Other fluids behave in much the same way. Here we apply a heat source to one side of a closed fluid container. Dry ice encased in plastic is used as the cold source on the other side. As we would expect, the heated fluid is rising and the cooled fluid sinking. But there is also horizontal motion. A cycle has developed. The cycle is known as a convection current. In a similar manner, the atmosphere moves in huge convection currents to balance the temperature differences between the poles and the equator. Warm air from the equator rises and moves toward the pole. There it cools, sinks, and moves back toward the equator to continue the cycle. These convective movements of the atmosphere are what we experience as winds. But we know that winds don't always blow from north to south. In fact, they rarely do. Obviously, there are other factors that govern the movements of the atmosphere. One of these is the rotation of the Earth. The atmosphere rotates along with the Earth, making one complete turn in about 24 hours. But not all parts of the atmosphere are traveling at the same velocity in space. In approximately 5 hours, the Earth and the atmosphere rotate this much. Air near the equator moves a greater distance in space than air near the pole, as shown by these red lines. Because it moves farther in the same amount of time, air near the equator has a greater eastward speed or velocity than air near the pole. This difference in velocities has an effect on winds that travel across the Earth's surface. In this demonstration, the northern hemisphere is represented by a flat turntable. The outer edge of the turntable corresponds to the equator. The center represents the pole. A projectile shot from the edge of the turntable toward the center, or from equator to pole, travels in a straight line. The ball is inked so that it will trace a path across the disc. Now the turntable is set in motion to simulate the Earth's rotation. The projectile is fired several times. Each time its path curves to the right. The path of a projectile fired from pole to equator also curves to the right. In fact, no matter where the projectile is fired, its path curves to the right. The same force affects the direction of winds on Earth. If the Earth were not rotating, air would travel in straight lines between the equator and the poles. But the rotation of the Earth deflects these winds. In the northern hemisphere, air is deflected to the right or eastward as it travels from equator to pole. Air moving from pole to equator is also deflected to the right or westward. In the southern hemisphere, moving air is deflected to the left or eastward from equator to pole and westward from pole to equator. This deflection, the result of the Earth's rotation, is called the Coriolis effect. Convection between the poles and equator, the Coriolis effect, and other influences like the distribution of oceans and continents explain the global wind patterns that we call trade winds, prevailing westerlies, and polar easterlies. But there is much more to atmospheric circulation than these global patterns. What the wind and weather are like where you are depends on a number of additional factors. For example, mountain ranges form barriers to air movement. Bodies of water can also play a part. Land absorbs and loses heat faster than water, so a shoreline can be the site of local winds caused by small-scale temperature differences. At any given time and place, many different factors come together to determine the movement of the atmosphere. And the movements of the atmosphere are what give us our weather: gentle spring breezes or violent storms. Storms occur when concentrations of energy exist in the atmosphere. They are an important part of atmospheric circulation.
From the beginning, man has been able to see the atmosphere only from his limited vantage point, the surface of the Earth. Now, space exploration and modern scientific techniques have given us another look at the atmosphere. Photographs transmitted from weather satellites give a picture of the atmosphere's constant change. In field studies all over the globe, meteorologists analyze the physical forces that influence global and local circulation patterns. The atmosphere, the air we breathe, the weather that affects our day-to-day activities, it is such an important part of life on Earth that we usually take it for granted. But we are beginning to realize that the atmosphere that makes possible life as we know it is only a very thin, very delicate envelope of gas surrounding the Earth. We are also beginning to realize that our activities are having an effect on this thin, vital envelope. Each year, we pour millions of tons of pollutants into the air. How do these substances change our atmosphere? How does the motion of the atmosphere affect the quality of life?
The introduction of the Vitaphone has been received both by the public and the artistic world with a great deal of interest and favor. A description of this creation from a more or less technical point of view may therefore be of interest to you. In this new development, the telephone has played an important part, and it seems altogether fitting that this year, which marks the semi-centennial of the birth of the telephone, should also mark the introduction in perfected form of a new application of the telephonic principles, a development which is destined to create an entirely new art, where the medium of expression is the synchronized reproduction of sound and scene. From the beginning of the attempts to produce and accomplish what the Vitaphone does with such precision, the problem was not so much that of synchronizing sound and picture as it was the recording and reproduction of the sound portion of the combination, and doing it with such clarity as to make it appear that one was listening to the sound from its original source. But it was not until some rather recent and fundamental advances in the telephone art had been perfected that we had available the elements necessary to accomplish a type of sound reproduction which one might term a perfect illusion. And this, of course, is the ideal which has been striven for ever since the idea of synchronized sound and picture was conceived. And in fact, it was because of the lack of means for accomplishing this portion of the production that real success has heretofore not been attained. The first big step in this direction was the perfecting in the Bell Telephone laboratories of the so-called public address system, by means of which the volume of sound from a telephone could be amplified to such an extent that the voice of the speaker could be heard simultaneously by many thousands of listeners. The first noteworthy demonstration of this development took place in 1921 upon the occasion of the inauguration of the late President Harding. At this time, an audience of more than 125,000 people surrounding the front of the Capitol building were able to hear clearly and distinctly all of the words spoken during the entire inaugural program. We have in this system, therefore, the element which makes possible the transmission of sound from a single source to large groups of people. And that is exactly what is required in connection with synchronized sound and picture. The next important step was the perfecting of the means for electrically recording at a distance sounds such as speech and music, and recording it in such a way that permanent and reproducible records could be made. This problem has been the subject of continuous study for a great many years. The past year and a half has seen the successful conclusion of this work, and many of you have observed in listening to the latest phonograph records, which are recorded by the electrical process, a distinct difference. These new records were demonstrated before this society last fall. Now the next and last step has to do with the perfecting of the means for reproducing the sound from the record in such volume and with such faithfulness as it would appear as a perfect reproduction of the original sound, regardless of the size of the auditorium or the number of listeners. Now as to their application to the vitaphone. In the electrical recording of sound, there is employed a pickup microphone similar to that employed in the public address system and also similar to that now used in the radio broadcasting stations. Vacuum tube amplifiers are employed to amplify the weak current generated by the action of the sound waves upon the pickup microphone. This amplification can be of sufficient degree to provide the power necessary to operate the recording mechanism required to make a permanent record. In the public address system, of course, the currents are also amplified, but they are led to loudspeakers. In this case, we lead the currents to a recording mechanism which will be described later. This arrangement makes it possible to locate the microphone quite independently of the recording device and also in proper relation to the scene to be photographed. Being an electrical system, the problem of synchronization is very simple. Now, as to the reproducing side of the combination. In the projection of the motion picture and the reproduction of the sound, there is employed substantially the reverse of the process just described, that is, the recording process. The sound record, in the form of a large disc, is rotated on a turntable. This turntable is geared directly to the motion picture projecting machine and is driven by a common constant speed electric motor. Associated with this rotating record is an electrical pickup device which carries a needle in a manner similar to that of the sound box of the ordinary phonograph. The motion of this needle, however, small as it is sufficient to generate an electric current whose characteristics are identical with the sound which produced the original record. This electrical current is then amplified and provides the energy to operate a bank of loud-speaking telephones which are located in proper relation to the motion picture screen. Here again it can be seen that by using an electrical system, we are not restricted as to the location of the elements of the reproducing system, and therefore the problem of synchronization becomes a relatively simple one. From this very brief description of a rather complex system can be seen the essential part played by the telephone and its related art. We took advantage of our researches in this field to put together an entirely new and different system to serve an entirely different purpose, and to produce a mechanism around which we believe an entirely new art will be created. Now, mere words, oftentimes fall short of telling the whole story in a case like this, and we're going to take you on a little journey to the studios of the Vitaphone Corporation, where through their courtesy you're going to be allowed to see something of the operation of the apparatus which I have just described.
All right, Mr. Kraft, you're ready. Thank you. You go ahead.
We are now in the studio of the Vitaphone Corporation. The short glimpse that you had gave you a general idea of the layout of the studio of this character. Later on, you'll have an opportunity of seeing more. In the meantime, however, in order that you may carry them clearly in mind the next time you see them, I'm going to refer to the different elements in the studio layout. First, on my left, is a setup, a set, ready for photographing and recording to produce a synchronized picture. The only feature of that set which is not in accordance with the regular procedure is that the microphone is in plain view, as is the microphone into which I'm speaking at the present time. This is a demonstration and not a commercial production. Therefore, we're not worried very much about the particular location of the microphones. Next to the set to be photographed is the camera booth. On my extreme right is another space which is called the recording booth. In both cases, both the camera booth and the recording booth, one wall has been removed in order that you may see the mechanism within. In the case of the recording room, it is usually located at quite a distance from the camera booth and the set that is being photographed. Now, in order that you may fix a little more clearly in your mind the relative positions and general layout of the studio, we will go back to the original scene. Now a little more as to the detail. There isn't very much to be said with regard to the setup, that is the scene to be photographed, more than I have already said. With regard to the camera booth, however, there are one or two interesting features. In the first place, it is heavily padded. It's arranged so that it can be moved about in the studio. The camera itself is quite similar to the ordinary motion picture cameras, with this very important exception, and that is it is driven by an electric motor which maintains absolutely constant speed and operates in exact synchronism with a similar motor which is used to drive the recording machine. Now, I think that will be sufficient with regard to the photographic end of the studio equipment, and we will now go over to the recording room and examine the mechanisms there. I think perhaps the best way to proceed here is to start with our familiar friend, the microphone. The current generated by the microphone is led to the amplifier, shown on my right. This amplifier is quite similar to that used in the public address system about which I spoke earlier in the talk. From the amplifier, wires lead to an electrical recording device which is mounted on the recording machine which you see at my left. The recording machine proper consists of a rotating turntable which is made to carry a wax disc. This turntable is maintained at a constant speed of rotation through an electric motor mounted underneath. This motor operating in exact synchronism with the corresponding motor in the camera. This is the electrical recording device, the most sensitive part of the equipment. Its function is to impress upon the wax an exact record of the electric current produced by the original pickup microphone. This is a very delicate operation, and that accounts for the presence of the microscope which is employed to determine the character of the cut as the work goes on. As I said before, this booth may be removed quite far from the actual photographing and must be soundproof both inside and out. This, I believe, covers in sufficient detail the various elements going to make up the studio equipment, but I believe you will be interested in seeing the studio in actual operation, and that is the next thing we're going to do. Are you ready, Mr. Heller?
Hit your lights, Ernie. Come on, boy. Little more. Come on. Let's keep the lights are quiet.
All right, hit that sunlight, Ernie.
Okay. Just. All right, everybody quiet, please. After the bell.
All the time in the tropical climb, where they do that funny, funny dance. I fell in love with the tropical dove while doing that funny, funny dance. Oh, the poor little kid, she never did have a bit of loving before. Oh, I made up my mind that I wasn't fine, the only girl that I adore. She's my hula baby, someday she'll be a lady, wing someday. And we live in Hawaiian sunshine and drink the dark brown moonshine and let the rest of the world go by. How are you? I'm bringing you kisses from over the sea. So go, hello, how are you? I'm happy to find you still waiting for me. And now I can you, can you, can you, can you, can you, can I help you, lady, too? And we can wake, and we can whack, and we can wiki, wiki, wacky, woo. Hello, how are you? I'm glad to be back to Hawaii and you.
See you light. Thanks, boys.
Well, you've taken another little journey without permission and warning. You are now seated behind the projection booth of the theater. Two of the walls of this projection booth have been removed so that you can see the machinery inside as we have in the previous demonstrations. I told you earlier that the reproducing end of the system was substantially the reverse of the recording portion. Well, we will start in and go through the various elements of the reproducing end. We first have the amplifier, shown at my right, which is quite similar in many respects to the amplifier employed in the recording process. It is arranged, however, with volume control devices to permit of regulating the volume of reproduction to fit the various sizes of auditoriums that are used and the character of music that may be reproduced. This monitoring and control of volume is aided by the loudspeaker, which you will notice on the wall at my left. This is in operation throughout the reproduction of the record, so that the operators who are far distant from the stage can hear what is going on. Now, on my left is the projecting machine and associated turntable and reproducing elements. The projecting machine is practically standard in all respects. The turntable mechanism, which rotates the sound record, is geared directly, however, to the projecting machine, both being operated by a constant speed electric motor. This is possible where it was not possible in connection with the recording end of the process, because of the fact that the two pieces of mechanism can be closely associated in the same room and therefore directly geared together. This is the form of record that is employed. Now I've placed the record on the turntable and also located the reproducing element ready to start for reproduction of the record itself. You'll recall I mentioned this electrical reproducing element as being the device to which is attached a needle which follows the grooves in the record. The movement of this needle generating an electric current, very weak, which is amplified, and the current then goes to the special loud-speaking telephones which are mounted adjacent to the motion picture screen. Now, we started to take a picture in the studio, and that picture has been completed. And in order that you may see how this portion of the mechanism actually operates, although the lamp has been operated all this time, and you can probably hear it, we will operate the rest of the mechanism and show the picture completely as it is now recorded on the screen for your benefit. I will ask the operator now to start the rest of the recording machinery.
All the time in the tropical climb away to do that funny, funny dance. I fell in love with a tropical dove while doing that funny, funny dance. Oh, the poor little kid, she never did have a bit of loving before. So I made up my mind that I wasn't fine, the only girl that I adore. See my hula baby, someday she'll be a lady. And we live in Hawaiian sunshine and drink the dark brown moonshine and let the rest of the world go by. Hello, hello, how are you? I'm bringing you kisses from over the sea. Don't know down in our hello, hello, how are you? I'm happy to find you. You're waiting for me. And baby, don't let this down. Feeling tomorrow like I feel today. If I feel tomorrow like I feel today, I'll pack my trunk and make my getaway. You wanna see that snow-white brown of mine? Just like he owns the Diamond Joseph line. He'd make a cross-eyed a woman go so blind. Like in the midnight, he's like flags of truce. The blackest man in the whole St. Louis. Black as a berry, sweet as a Jew. St. Louis woman with a diamond ring, don't leave that man run by her apron string. One for powder and store-bought hair. The man I love wouldn't go nowhere. Top the face blue, as blue as I can be. That man got a heart like a rocket in the sea. Oh, if he wouldn't got to bother me, doggone it. I used to be so sentimental, I couldn't bear to be alone. Our meeting was just accidental, but since that day, dear, I just can't help but say, dear, I don't mind being all alone when I'm all alone with you. You're the kind I've tried hard to find. You've made all my dreams come true. In the crowd, I feel mighty proud, but if you're not there, I'm lonesome. I don't mind being all alone when I'm all alone with you.
You have just witnessed through your eyes and ears a demonstration of the principles and manner of operation of a complicated mechanism. Interestingly enough, you have been enabled to do this through the operation of the same mechanism. More than that, you have witnessed the introduction of the vitaphone into a field of practically unlimited usefulness, the field of education, as distinct from that of amusement in which it has had its first commercial application. Events, complete in actions and in sound, can now be reproduced by these methods, regardless of time or place. We of the immediate present, as well as the generations to come, will be the gainers by this possibility. The Faraday of the future, the Pasteur, and the Galileo may, by this method, make available to students in any place or at any subsequent time the results of their researches and the demonstration of their scientific discoveries, and synchronize with this their own comments and discussions and even their own personality. The communication and demonstration of educational material will be facilitated, and our entire educational process may undergo changes beyond our present imaginations. Is it too much to expect, for instance, that machines, such as have been described, may relieve the teaching staffs of our educational institutions of the enormous amount of routine work which they labor under at the present time, thus leaving them free to devote more time to their own researches, which will make them better teachers, or to give them greater time to devote to the students under their direction. Now, of course, such uses of expensive equipment must inevitably follow and cannot economically precede the successful commercial career of this apparatus in the more popular field of amusement. Selfishly, as well as generously, therefore, we who are interested in these other applications of the Vitaphone wish its success and a prosperous and rapid introduction into its own immediate field of amusement. The public will probably accept this as another one of the wonderful things that are brought forth for their benefit, pleasure, and amusement. We are all in danger of viewing these advances as the commonplace occurrences of our everyday life. We grow to expect them and to make use of them without giving much thought as to how they were brought about or the motivating influences which underlie their creation. We may all of us well stop to realize that each achievement, like that of the present, has been accomplished through the painstaking labors of many scientific workers over long periods. These men have grasped nature's secrets, and their researches now permit us to make nature obedient to our will in the wonderful ways of the present day. May we not, therefore, consider this demonstration as a tribute to the many workers, some of whose names you will never know, the many workers in the various fields of science and engineering who, through their enthusiastic labors, have made possible these results. I thank you.